What did the French writer Jean-Baptiste Alphonse Coeur say in 1849? You don't know, do you? Plus ça change, plus c'est la même chose, which means the more things change, the more they stay the same. And so it is with Australia. If you're a tennis fan, you would have been watching Wimbledon at the weekend. No masks, but there were 30,000 new COVID cases in Britain on Friday. On a per head of population basis, that's the equivalent of about 10,000 cases in Australia. We have 35 new cases in New South Wales, a total of 226, 90% are non-acute, 4 new cases in Queensland. In Australia, all up, 438 cases, 99.8% are mild. 1 is serious. There'll be 65,000 people at Wembley Stadium on Wednesday to see England play Denmark in the semi-final of the Euro Championships. If Ash Barty makes the Wimbledon final, she'll play before a full house without masks of 23,000. But while Britain, as I said, had 30,000 cases on Friday and 14 deaths, we have 438 cases and no deaths, which can only lead to the conclusion that the handling of the virus and the vaccination and our government response has been one debacle after another. Gladys Berejiklian said in May of New South Wales that she had, quote, made sure that New South Wales had, quote, the systems in place to be able to weather whatever came our way so that we wouldn't ever go into lockdown again. But a new cluster forms. She presses the lockdown button, followed by almost every other premier. Do these people know the story of the boy and the wolf? People don't believe you, even when you are telling the truth. The Deakin University Chair of Epidemiology, Catherine Bennett, says the proportion of people fully vaccinated to avoid the need for lockdowns would be in the order of 30%. Gladys Berejiklian says the target for avoiding future lockdowns is 80% of adults vaccinated. Who do you believe? I suspect no one. But when asked what she'd done backtracking on lockdowns, she said, I don't reject a single decision we've taken because it's based on health advice. Do they know the meaning of the word advice? Advice is a recommendation, a guide. Advice, though, for these people is treated with biblical truth. And, of course, millions still in lockdown with no guarantee, actually, will be free at the end of the week. How else do you evaluate all of this without using the word chaos? Remember, there was going to be the 1A and 1B rollout of vaccines. No, you don't, because it never happened. So thousands of disability, aged care and frontline workers are still unvaccinated. Then AstraZeneca was only for the over 50s. Then a 52-year-old had a blood clot. Suddenly, AstraZeneca was for the over 60s. Then a week ago tonight, the Prime Minister said anyone who wants it can approach their GP and get it. But that contradicted advice, there's that word again, from the Australian Technical Advisory Group on Immunisation. Pfizer is the preferred vaccine for the under 60s, they said, due to increased risk of clotting events. Is this why the government has indemnified doctors? Increased risk? Then the Queensland Premier, Dr Jeanette Young, and her sidekick, Anastasia Palaszczuk, said the under 50 call hadn't been approved by the National Cabinet. So now everyone is struggling to get Pfizer. The man who coordinated the response to HIV/AIDS, Professor Bill Bowtell, has described Australia's response to the virus, the vaccination and the quarantine as the greatest failure of public health administration in the history of this country, which is what Craig Kelly said to me last week. We've seen what's happened in aged care homes when every man and his dog knew they were the most vulnerable. We've seen what happened with quarantine in Victoria when it was placed in the hands of incompetence. How would a limousine driver responsible for the Bondi cluster not be vaccinated when he's ferrying positive cases to and from the airport not wearing a mask? But he'd broken no law. The unvaccinated student nurse working at Fairfield Hospital and then Royal North Shore for 4 days while infected. And with all the hoopla and carry-on and press conferences every day, lectures and threats, by June 30, 5.9% of the country was fully vaccinated. 5.9%. Why? Well, when they talk vaccines, Australia backed 2 horses in the race. The AstraZeneca vaccine and a Queensland university promise that never materialised. Pfizer was available and on offer. We weren't interested in either Pfizer or Moderna. In fact, the Director of Market Access for Pfizer, Louise Graham, spoke to a Senate Select Committee on January 28 this year. And as Jane Hansen reported the weekend, quote, Pfizer commenced talks at the end of June 2020. writing a letter inviting the government to begin discussions about the possibility of supplying the Pfizer vaccine. 34 other countries ordered 1 billion doses. It took Australia until December 24 to order 10 million, enough for 1 in 5 Australians. A cock-up, you think? Absolutely. So now Pfizer, 10 million doses, is not enough. We didn't order vaccine supply to do the job that was promised to Australians. Now, as we fall over ourselves to order the Pfizer vaccine, unsurprisingly, Pfizer says, we'll get around to it. And here we are. The Prime Minister now says he's got a national vaccination plan. What is it? Or is it another threat? Don't get vaccinated and the lockdowns will continue. Phase 2 is to minimise serious illness and hospitalisation. What's that mean? No one person seriously ill at the moment. The Prime Minister says, I hope we're living in that second phase next year. And, you know, if we get a really good response over the course of the next year, let's see how we go. This is ScoMo from marketing, a load of rubbish. As one of my listeners says, it's a bit like playing the All Blacks and the coach says at halftime, we've got to stop them scoring tries. We still aren't told what the government is going to do or when it's going to happen, other than threaten everyone if they don't get vaccinated. Now, the Prime Minister's got to be judged by his own promises. At the National Press Club at the start of the year, he said the government's main task would be to get everyone vaccinated so life could return to normal. 9.1% are fully vaccinated. But hang on, vaccination doesn't make a scrap of difference. They call a lockdown. If you're fully vaccinated, you're locked down too. If you're a close contact but you're fully vaccinated, you stay at home. You too wear one of these stupid bloody masks. You too spend 2 weeks in quarantine. Well, I'll tell you something. If this keeps going, these mask mandates, the border closures, the lockdowns, which Australians once accepted as precautions, are you listening, Gladys? Prime Minister McGowan in WA, Palaszczuk in Queensland, these will soon be seen as burdens that have to be suffered because government was incompetent. And just if, vaccination is the answer, do we remain locked up because government stuffed up on the vaccine rollout? States like Texas and Florida have been open for months. California and New York, back to normal. Britain had nearly 30,000 new cases on Friday. Britain has opened up. I mentioned Singapore last week, with the Trade Minister saying the bad news is COVID may never go away. The good news, it is possible to live normally with it amongst our midst. Are you telling us, Gladys, that 80% of the adult population will have to be vaccinated before we can have a conversation about what COVID normal looks like? One of the problems from the get-go is we haven't been told the truth. And anyone who dares differ from the so-called science or the government is cancelled. How does Gladys Berejiklian say in May that Australians should be able to move freely around the country irrespective of whether they've been vaccinated or not, but then say in June 80% of the adult population will have to be vaccinated before we can talk about a new normal? There was a story today with the headline, Facts Not Figures in Daily Updates. There's one fact they won't give you. Australia, with a population of 25.3 million, has 438 cases. 99.8% are mild. Why have government avoided that fact for the last 18 months? It's time everyone from the Prime Minister down woke up. I repeat, you've seen the pictures on TV. There were nearly 30,000 new coronavirus cases in Britain on Friday. On a per capita basis, that's equivalent to 10,000 in Australia. The virus hasn't gone away, but Britain has opened up. We've had 39 new cases in Australia. All up, 483 infected, locked down. For how long? Oh, we don't deserve to be told. It's time everyone from the Prime Minister down accepted one truth. They have been wrong on too many fronts. It's time to do an about turn. Start listening, and you might get it right. Ditch the advisors who've given you dud advice and change direction. If you don't, you'd best remember the boy and the wolf. People won't believe you even when you are telling the truth.